Gold digger leaves husband for a billionaire, but karma hits back. Chloe Bennet slammed the magazine shut and tossed it onto the coffee table with a frustrated sigh. Another spread of celebrities at exclusive parties, draped in designer clothes she couldn't afford. Another reminder of everything her life wasn't. "Everything okay?" Ben asked, looking up from his laptop where complex diagrams of his latest eco-friendly energy prototype filled the screen. "Fine," she replied curtly, running her fingers through her perfectly highlighted hair, the result of 3 months of skipping lunches to afford the salon appointments that kept her looking like she belonged in a world beyond this modest suburban home. Ben's concerned eyes lingered on her for a moment before returning to his work. At 34, he had the same boyish enthusiasm for engineering that had charmed her in college. Back then, his brilliance had seemed like a ticket to success. 8 years later, his ethical insistence on developing sustainable technology instead of chasing corporate paychecks had left them comfortable but far from wealthy. Chloe stared at her husband, kind, loyal, and utterly blind to her growing dissatisfaction. His worn MIT sweatshirt had a small coffee stain near the collar. His sensible watch probably cost less than one of the cocktails served at the charity galas she obsessively followed on social media. "Holy shit!" Ben suddenly exclaimed, jolting upright. "Chloe, it worked! The efficiency readings are off the charts." She forced a smile. "That's great, honey." "No, you don't understand," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. "This could change everything. This isn't just incremental improvement, it's revolutionary." Chloe nodded automatically. She'd heard versions of this enthusiasm before. Ben's projects were always on the verge of changing everything, while their bank account remained stubbornly unchanged. "Oh, and this came today," Ben added, reaching for an envelope on the side table. "Must have forgotten to mention it." Chloe took the heavy cream envelope, raising an eyebrow at the embossed gold logo. "The Thorne Foundation Annual Innovation Gala?" she read, her heart suddenly racing. The Thorne Foundation was the most prestigious tech investment group in the country. "They want to showcase my prototype," Ben explained, his smile genuine and warm. "It's a huge opportunity for visibility." For once, Chloe's excitement matched his, but for entirely different reasons. The Thorne Foundation Gala was the social event of the season. Tech moguls, celebrities, fashion icons, and venture capitalists would all be there. "When is it?" she asked, struggling to keep her voice casual. 2 weeks from Saturday." "I know it's short notice." "It's perfect," she interrupted, already mentally cataloging her wardrobe options. The blue Givenchy knockoff might work if she added the right accessories. As Ben returned to his work, Chloe pulled out her phone and searched for images from last year's gala. The results made her breath catch, a glittering showcase of wealth and influence, exactly the world she had always felt destined for. For the next 2 weeks, Chloe prepared meticulously. She maxed out her credit card on a new dress, spent hours practicing sophisticated small talk, and researched the expected attendees until she could recite their accomplishments and connections by heart. When the night of the gala finally arrived, the converted warehouse space exceeded even Chloe's expectations. Crystal chandeliers hung from exposed ceiling beams, while waiters in immaculate uniforms circulated with champagne and delicate hors d'oeuvres. Important people moved through the crowd like sharks, purposeful, powerful, predatory. Ben stood awkwardly by his display, earnestly explaining his eco-friendly energy converter to anyone who would listen. Chloe stayed by his side for exactly 17 minutes before making her excuse. "I'll get us some drinks," she said, kissing his cheek. But she had no intention of returning quickly. This was her night too, and she wasn't going to waste it. She took a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and moved through the crowd with practiced confidence. That's when she saw him. Vincent Hale stood in the center of an attentive group, gesturing elegantly as he spoke. Even from a distance, his presence was magnetic. Tall and imposing in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his dark hair just starting to silver at the temples. At 45, he radiated the easy confidence that came from a life of privilege and power. Chloe recognized him immediately from magazine covers and society pages. Vincent Hale, tech investor, fashion connoisseur, and notorious bachelor with a penchant for dating models and sponsoring fashion startups. His estimated net worth was in the billions. As if sensing her attention, Vincent glanced in her direction. Their eyes met, and Chloe felt a jolt of electricity. He smiled, a private, knowing smile, before returning to his conversation. Chloe took a long sip of champagne, a plan already forming in her mind. She circled the room, gradually working her way toward Vincent's group, eavesdropping on their conversation about sustainable fashion investments. "Mr. Hale," she said when she finally approached, extending her hand. "I wanted to compliment you on your recent investment in eco-friendly textiles. It's truly visionary." He took her hand, holding it a moment too long. "Please call me Vincent." "And you are?" "Chloe Bennett," she replied, deliberately omitting that she was here with her husband. "I'm in sustainable design myself." Vincent's eyes lit up with interest. "How fascinating. I'd love to hear more about your work. Perhaps over lunch next week?" Across the room, Ben looked up from his prototype, scanning the crowd for his wife. But Chloe had already disappeared into the world she had always believed she deserved, a world that Ben, with all his kindness and intelligence, could never provide. Chloe's first lunch with Vincent Hale stretched to 3 hours at an exclusive rooftop restaurant where the wait staff knew him by name. When he casually mentioned his private jet was heading to Paris the following weekend for a fashion show, she invented a fictional sustainable fabric presentation she'd been invited to give. "What a coincidence," Vincent said, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "You must join me. My jet has plenty of room." That evening, Chloe unlocked the front door to find Ben surrounded by components and tools in their living room, working late on improvements to his prototype. "There you are," he said, looking up with relief. "I was worried. You didn't answer any of my texts." "Sorry, my phone died," she lied, having deliberately ignored his messages. "The networking lunch ran long." Ben nodded, accepting her explanation without question. "That's great. Did you make any good connections?" Chloe turned away to hide her smile. "You could say that." Over the next 3 weeks, Chloe constructed an elaborate double life. To Ben, she was attending networking events and meetings with potential fashion industry contacts. In reality, she was with Vincent, flying to Paris on his private jet, dining at restaurants where the menus had no prices, and being photographed at exclusive parties where she was introduced as Vincent's special guest. When a gossip blog published photos of them together at a gallery opening, Chloe held her breath, waiting for someone she knew to recognize her. But Ben rarely looked at social media, and their social circle didn't overlap with the world of celebrity news. Vincent showered her with gifts, a diamond bracelet to match her sparkling eyes, designer dresses that deserved a worthy canvas, and a rose gold smartphone to stay connected when they were apart. Each present made her previous life seem increasingly dull and confining. "I've never met anyone like you," Vincent told her as they sipped champagne on the balcony of his penthouse apartment, the city lights spread beneath them like a carpet of stars. "Most people want something from me. But you're different." Chloe smiled, choosing not to correct his misunderstanding. She wanted everything from him: the lifestyle, the status, the escape from mediocrity. And she was getting it, one expensive gift at a time. Meanwhile, her resentment toward Ben grew. His habits, once endearing, now irritated her beyond measure. "Do you have to chew so loudly?" she snapped one evening as they ate dinner. Ben looked up, surprised. "I wasn't aware that I was." "Well, you are. It's driving me crazy." She pushed her plate away and stood up. "And do you have to wear that ratty sweater all the time? You look like you shop at thrift stores." "This is my lucky sweater," Ben said quietly. "I was wearing it when we met, remember?" "That's my point," she said coldly. "You haven't changed anything in years. Don't you want more from life then?" She gestured around their modest home. "This? I have everything I need," he replied, his confusion evident. "I have my work, our home, and you. What else matters?" His contentment infuriated her. She stalked out of the room, texting Vincent to meet her for a late drink. When she returned home past midnight, Ben was asleep on the couch, having waited up for her until exhaustion took over. The next morning, Vincent surprised her with a key to his penthouse. "I want you to move in with me," he said, pressing the sleek metal key into her palm. "This belongs to you now." "I'm married," Chloe reminded him, though she'd been vague about the details of her relationship with Ben. Vincent shrugged, unconcerned. "Marriages end every day. The question is, do you want a life of exceptional experiences, or are you content with ordinary existence?" Put that way, there was no question at all. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning. Ben stood in the kitchen holding the manila envelope, his face pale with shock. "I don't understand," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We can work through whatever's wrong. We can go to counseling." Chloe continued packing her suitcase. "There's nothing to work through, Ben. I've outgrown this life. I've outgrown you. Is there someone else?" She paused, then decided on honesty. It would be in the gossip columns soon enough. "Yes. Vincent Hale." Ben's expression crumpled. "The investor from the gala? Chloe, you've only known him for a month." "Sometimes a month tells you more than 8 years," she replied coolly. "He sees my potential. He's giving me opportunities you never could." Ben sank into a chair, the divorce papers still clutched in his hand. "Please don't do this," he said quietly. "I love you, Chloe. We can fix this." For a brief moment, Chloe felt a flicker of doubt. Then her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent confirming their dinner reservation at a Michelin-starred restaurant, and the moment passed. "My car is here," she said, closing her suitcase. "You can keep the house. I won't need it." As she walked out the door, she didn't look back at the man she'd once promised to love forever. In her mind, she was already living her new life, a life of luxury, excitement, and endless possibility with Vincent Hale. What she didn't see was Ben, alone in their kitchen, straightening his shoulders with quiet dignity. After the initial shock subsided, he turned back to his work table. If Chloe had looked back, she might have noticed something change in his eyes, not just heartbreak, but a newfound resolve that would ultimately rewrite both their futures. 6 months into her new life with Vincent, Chloe lounged by the infinity pool atop his penthouse, scrolling through fashion magazines while sipping champagne at 11 in the morning. The skyline view still took her breath away, though she'd grown accustomed to many other luxuries. The private chef who prepared breakfast, the housekeeper who tidied her designer clothes, the chauffeur who waited whenever she needed transportation. Yet beneath the veneer of perfection, hairline cracks were forming. Vincent often disappeared for days on business trips where he was mysteriously unreachable. When present, he spent hours on calls, barely acknowledging her except to parade her at select events where she was carefully positioned as his companion, rather than girlfriend. "Vincent," Chloe ventured one evening as he reviewed documents in his home office. "The Vogue charity gala is next month. Should I start looking for dresses?" He glanced up briefly. "I'm afraid I'll be in Singapore that week. But feel free to order something nice for yourself, my assistant will handle it." "I thought we could go together," she said, trying to hide her disappointment. "It's the biggest fashion event of the season." Vincent sighed and removed his glasses. "Chloe, you know how my schedule works by now. Besides, appearing together at too many events creates expectations I'm not prepared to fulfill at this stage." "What stage is that, exactly?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. His expression cooled. "The stage where I'm enjoying your company while maintaining my freedom. Wasn't that our understanding?" Chloe retreated, suddenly aware of how tenuous her position was. She had no name on the lease, no shared accounts, no promises beyond the moment. Her entire existence depended on Vincent's continued interest. "Of course," she replied, forcing a smile. "I just miss you when you're gone." Vincent's attention had already returned to his documents. Meanwhile, across the city, Ben's life had taken an unexpected turn. The night after Chloe left, he'd worked until dawn, channeling his pain into his prototype. What began as distraction became obsession, and obsession yielded breakthrough. 3 months of relentless work later, Ben presented his refined energy converter to a small group of eco-conscious investors. Unlike his previous attempts to secure funding, this time the response was immediate. "This isn't just efficient, it's revolutionary," said Elaine Thorne, the sharp-eyed head of the Thorne Foundation. "How quickly can you scale production?" With a $5 million initial investment, Bennett Green Technologies was born. Ben hired a team of dedicated engineers and leased a small manufacturing facility. His first priority wasn't the expected luxury purchases of the newly wealthy. Instead, he invested in improving the technology further. Among his early hires was Dr. Leila Rodriguez, an environmental engineer whose research on sustainable materials complemented Ben's energy work. Intelligent, forthright, and passionate about climate solutions, Leila challenged Ben's ideas and pushed the technology in new directions. "Your converter is brilliant," she told him during her interview. "But your housing materials are inefficient. We could improve output by 20% with the right composites." Ben hired her on the spot, impressed by her directness. "No one's ever pointed that out before." "Then you've been working with the wrong people," she replied with a smile. 6 months after Chloe's departure, Bennett Green Technologies had grown to 30 employees. Ben had moved from his suburban home to a modest apartment near the office, preferring practicality over flash. Though he could now afford designer clothes, he still wore simple button-downs and kept the same reliable watch, albeit with a new band after Leila pointed out the old one was falling apart. "You're going to be on Bloomberg Tech tomorrow," Leila reminded him, stopping by his office late one evening. "Don't you think our CEO should look the part?" Ben looked up from his workstation, surprised to find it was past 9 p.m. "Do I look that bad?" Leila leaned against the doorframe, assessing him with amused candor. "Not bad. Just unchanged. Success should transform you, at least a little." Something in her words resonated with him. "Maybe you're right," he admitted. "I've been so focused on the technology, I haven't thought much about myself." "The technology is changing the world," Leila said softly. "But don't forget to let it change you too." The next day, before his interview, Ben visited a high-end men's store. The stylist helped him select clothes that were still comfortable but sharper, more defined, like the person he was becoming. When he arrived at the studio, the producer did a double take. "Bennett? Wow, you look different." The interview was supposed to be 10 minutes but extended to 30 as Ben clearly explained his technology's potential impact on climate change. Social media exploded with praise not just for his innovation but for his authentic passion. By evening, #BennettGreenTech was trending, and 3 major corporations had called about partnerships. When Ben returned to the office, Leila was waiting with the team and a bottle of champagne. "To changing the world," she toasted, her eyes meeting his with undisguised admiration. Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition of shared purpose that felt stronger than anything Ben had experienced before. Across town, Chloe lounged alone in Vincent's penthouse, scrolling through social media when a familiar face appeared on her screen. She nearly dropped her phone in shock. There was Ben, her Ben, looking confident and distinguished in a perfectly tailored suit, speaking eloquently about sustainable energy on Bloomberg Tech. The caption read, "Meet Ben Bennett, the eco-engineer revolutionizing green technology." Chloe stared at the screen, unable to reconcile this poised, successful man with the husband she'd left behind. Even more unsettling was the realization forming in the pit of her stomach. She had made a terrible miscalculation. "The National Innovation Expo is next week," Vincent announced over breakfast, scrolling through his tablet. "We should attend. There's a company I've been tracking, Bennett Green Technologies. Their energy conversion system could revolutionize my real estate portfolio." Chloe nearly choked on her coffee. In the 2 months since she'd seen Ben's interview, she'd carefully avoided mentioning him to Vincent, hoping their worlds would never collide. "Is that necessary?" she asked, fighting to keep her voice casual. "You have so many meetings already." Vincent looked up, surprised by her reluctance. "This is potentially the biggest green investment opportunity of the decade. Their CEO is giving the keynote address. He returned to his tablet. Apparently, he developed the initial prototype himself. Started the company after his wife left him for another man. Fascinating story, channeled personal hardship into professional innovation. Chloe's stomach twisted into knots. How do you know about his personal situation? It was in his Forbes profile last week, Vincent said absently. They're calling him the honest engineer. Apparently he's disrupting the industry with radical transparency and ethical practices. He set down his tablet. I want to meet this Ben Bennett. 3 days later, Chloe stood beside Vincent in the grand exhibition hall of the National Convention Center, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd spent hours selecting her outfit, a subtle designer dress that projected sophistication without drawing attention. Her strategy was simple: blend in, avoid direct contact, and pray Ben wouldn't notice her. The exhibition floor buzzed with energy as tech companies showcased their innovations. Vincent moved purposefully toward the Bennett Green Technologies display, where a crowd had gathered around an elegant demonstration of their energy converter. Chloe hung back, scanning the booth anxiously. Relief washed over her when she spotted Leila Rodriguez, whom she recognized from company photos online, leading the presentation instead of Ben. He must be preparing for the keynote, Vincent murmured, checking his watch. Which starts in 20 minutes. Let's find good seats. The main auditorium filled quickly. Vincent's status secured them seats in the front row, leaving Chloe with nowhere to hide. She sat rigidly, her eyes fixed on the empty podium, dreading what was coming. The lights dimmed, and the event organizer appeared to introduce the visionary behind the most promising environmental innovation of the decade. And then Ben was there, walking confidently to center stage. Chloe's breath caught. The transformation was even more striking in person. Gone was the slightly rumpled engineer she'd left behind. This Ben wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit with a green tie, his posture relaxed yet authoritative. He'd gotten a new haircut that suited his features better, and there was a quiet assurance in his movements that had never been there before. Thank you all for being here today, he began, his voice steady and clear. I'm going to tell you about technology that can reduce our environmental footprint while improving our quality of life. But first, I want to tell you why this matters. What followed was a masterclass in communication. Ben explained complex engineering concepts with accessible metaphors, connecting his innovation to real-world problems and solutions. He was passionate without being zealous, knowledgeable without being condescending. Vincent leaned forward in his seat, completely engaged. Brilliant, he whispered. Absolutely brilliant. Chloe barely heard the words, transfixed instead by the confidence with which Ben commanded the room, a room filled with the exact type of powerful people she'd left him to pursue. Near the end of the presentation, Ben's gaze swept the front row and froze momentarily as he spotted Chloe. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, surprise, and something else she couldn't identify, before he smoothly continued, never missing a beat. That brief moment of eye contact shook her more than she expected. Unlike the hurt, angry man she'd left behind, this Ben seemed completely unmoved by her presence. After thunderous applause concluded the keynote, Vincent was on his feet immediately. We need to meet him, he insisted, guiding Chloe toward the VIP reception area. They found Ben surrounded by admirers in the reception hall. Up close, Chloe could see the subtle changes in him more clearly, the confident set of his shoulders, the focused intelligence in his eyes that had always been there but now seemed sharper, more defined. Beside him stood Leila Rodriguez, elegant in a simple blue dress, her hand occasionally touching Ben's arm as they spoke with investors. The gesture suggested an ease and intimacy that made Chloe's stomach twist. Vincent pushed forward. Mr. Bennett! Vincent Hale of Hale Investments. Remarkable presentation. I'd love to discuss potential collaboration. Ben turned, his professional smile faltering for just a fraction of a second as his eyes met Chloe's. If Vincent noticed, he gave no indication. Mr. Hale, Ben said smoothly, extending his hand. I'm familiar with your work. Vincent beamed. And this is my companion, Chloe. Ben's eyes flicked to Chloe, then back to Vincent. "We've met," he said simply, without elaboration. His tone was neither cold nor warm, just politely distant, as if she were a casual acquaintance from years ago. Before Vincent could ask for clarification, Layla stepped forward. "I'm Layla Rodriguez, Chief Innovation Officer," she said, shaking Vincent's hand. Her quick glance at Chloe suggested she knew exactly who she was. "Dr. Rodriguez is the backbone of our operation," Ben said, his voice warming as he looked at her. "Her environmental engineering expertise made our prototype commercially viable. And Ben's vision made it possible in the first place." Layla countered, her admiration evident. The conversation turned technical, with Vincent asking detailed questions about the technology. Throughout the exchange, Ben answered professionally but never directly addressed Chloe or acknowledged their past. His indifference was more devastating than anger would have been. The man who had once loved her so completely now looked at her as if she were a stranger, or worse, simply irrelevant. As they walked away, Vincent was oblivious to her distress. "I want to invest in Bennett Green Technologies," he said decisively. "And I want to know more about Ben Bennett. There's something exceptional about him. I'm inviting him to dinner next week to discuss terms." Chloe felt sick. Her carefully constructed worlds were about to collide, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The private dining room at La Maison gleamed with understated luxury. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over the single table adorned with fresh flowers and fine china. A sommelier quietly decanted a bottle of wine that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Chloe had spent 3 hours preparing for this dinner, trying on and discarding outfit after outfit before settling on a conservative black dress that would attract minimal attention. For the first time since leaving Ben, she wanted to disappear. "You seem tense," Vincent remarked as they waited for their guest. "This is just a business dinner." Chloe forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just a headache." "Well, shake it off. Bennett is bringing his Chief Innovation Officer, and I need you to charm them both. There's something about him that's different from most entrepreneurs I meet. He's principled. I need to understand what motivates him before I make an offer." Before Chloe could respond, the maitre d' appeared at the door. "Mr. Bennett and Dr. Rodriguez have arrived, sir." Ben entered first, impeccable in a navy suit that Chloe had never seen before. Layla followed, elegant in a simple emerald dress that complemented her warm brown skin. They moved together with the easy synchronization of people who spent considerable time in each other's company. Vincent rose to greet them with practiced charm. "Ben, Layla, may I call you by your first names? Thank you for joining us." Ben shook Vincent's hand firmly. "Thank you for the invitation." His eyes flickered briefly to Chloe, acknowledging her with a slight nod before focusing back on Vincent. As they took their seats, Chloe noticed a subtle protective stance in Layla's body language toward Ben. She clearly knew about their history and was watching Chloe warily. The first course arrived, a delicate seafood appetizer paired with an exclusive white wine. Vincent steered the conversation toward casual topics: recent industry news, shared connections, upcoming tech conferences. "Your keynote was remarkable," Vincent said, refilling Ben's wine glass. "The clarity with which you communicated complex technology was impressive. What did you learn to present like that?" Ben smiled slightly. "Necessity. When you believe in something, you find ways to make others understand its value. And you clearly believe in what you're doing," Vincent noted. "Unlike many CEOs I meet who are primarily motivated by profit." "Profit matters," Ben replied. "But it's a result, not a purpose. Bennett Green Technologies exists to create sustainable energy solutions that improve lives." "Admirable," Vincent said, signaling for the main course to be served. "But also profitable, which is why I'm interested. I've reviewed your projections and prepared an investment proposal." He slid a sleek folder across the table. Ben opened it, reviewed the document inside, then passed it to Layla, who studied it carefully. "It's a generous offer," Ben acknowledged after Layla nodded her agreement. "And in many ways, it makes perfect business sense." Vincent smiled broadly. "I'm pleased you see it that way. With my backing and global connections, we could scale your technology across continents. There's just one issue I need to address, Ben said, his voice even. He turned to Chloe, who had been silent throughout the meal. Vincent, how much has Chloe told you about her background? The question hung in the air like a suspended blade. Chloe felt the blood drain from her face. Vincent looked confused. She's in sustainable fashion design. We met at the Thorn Foundation Gala last year. Ben's expression remained calm. I see. He turned back to Vincent. Mr. Hale, I make it a policy to be transparent in all my business dealings. So I should tell you that Chloe and I have a history. Until last year, she was my wife. Vincent's confusion deepened. Your wife? My research indicated your ex-wife was named Chloe Bennett. Ben finished for him. She's been using her maiden name. Vincent turned to Chloe, his expression hardening. Is this true? She nodded, unable to speak. And you didn't think this was relevant information to share before I invited your ex-husband to dinner to discuss a multi-million-dollar investment? I was going to tell you, Chloe began weakly. It just never seemed like the right time. The right time, Vincent repeated flatly. Perhaps before I invited your ex-husband to dinner to discuss a multi-million-dollar investment? Ben watched this exchange with detached calm. I'm not bringing this up to cause problems, he said. But I believe in doing business with people who value integrity, both professionally and personally. I assure you, I had no knowledge of this connection, Vincent said tightly. I believe you, Ben replied. But it raises a question I can't ignore. Chloe misrepresented her past to both of us. She told me she wanted more from life than I could provide, and apparently told you she was a fashion designer. Neither was true. Vincent's eyes narrowed as he turned to Chloe. Is that accurate? You have no background in fashion design? Tears welled in her eyes. Vincent, I can explain. She was a retail manager when we were married. Ben continued, his voice level but firm. She left our marriage specifically to pursue a wealthier lifestyle. Each word landed like a physical blow. Vincent's expression transformed from confusion to disgust. I don't appreciate being misled, he said coldly to Chloe. Then he turned to Ben. Nevertheless, business is business. My offer stands. Ben shook his head slightly. I'm afraid I'll have to decline. Bennett Green Technologies partners only with investors whose values align with ours. Integrity isn't just our company policy, it's our core principle. He stood, placing his napkin beside his plate. Layla rose with him, a supportive presence at his side. Thank you for dinner, Ben said with quiet dignity. I wish you both well. After they left, Vincent's fury was glacial. 7 months, he said finally. 7 months we've been together, and your entire identity has been a fabrication. Not everything, Chloe protested, tears streaming down her face. My feelings for you are real. Vincent laughed bitterly. Your feelings for my lifestyle, you mean? He signaled for the check. I don't build empires with dishonest people, Chloe. And I certainly don't share my life with them. The following morning, Chloe watched in horror as her personal disaster went public. Entertainment websites ran the headline. Hale cuts ties with gold-digging girlfriend. Vincent's PR team had moved quickly, portraying him as the deceived party and Chloe as a calculating social climber. By evening, her access card to Vincent's penthouse had been deactivated. His assistant supervised as security helped her pack her belongings, making it clear that any gifts Vincent had given her were to remain. In less than 24 hours, Chloe had lost everything: the luxury lifestyle, the social connections, and any semblance of reputation in the high society she had so desperately wanted to join. And the worst part? Ben, the man she had discarded, had emerged not as a vengeful ex, but as someone so far beyond her reach that he didn't even consider her worth his anger anymore. 3 months after her public humiliation, Chloe sat in a small cafe in her hometown, stirring sugar into coffee she couldn't afford to buy regularly anymore. Her designer clothes had been sold piece by piece to cover rent on her cramped studio apartment. Her phone, no longer the latest model, displayed a job rejection email from the 5th boutique this week. "We'll keep your resume on file," they all said. But the truth was simpler. No upscale retailer wanted to hire the woman whose gold-digging scandal had made national headlines. She had returned to Mapleton out of desperation. With her savings depleted and her reputation in tatters, the small town she'd once been so desperate to escape became her only option. Her parents, retired in Arizona, had offered financial help, but pride prevented her from accepting more than the bare minimum needed for a fresh start. "Chloe? Chloe Bennett, is that you?" She looked up to see Sarah Miller, her former high school classmate, approaching with a toddler on her hip. "It is you," Sarah said, sliding into the chair opposite her without invitation. "I thought you were living in the city with some hotshot businessman. What brings you back to Mapleton?" The genuine curiosity in Sarah's voice made it clear she hadn't seen the tabloid stories. "Small mercies. Just visiting," Chloe lied. "Taking a break from the city." Sarah nodded, bouncing her daughter on her knee. "Well, you picked an exciting time to visit. The old Wilson factory has reopened. It's a green technology plant now. Brought nearly 200 jobs to town. My husband just got hired as a shift supervisor." Chloe's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. "A green technology plant?" "Bennett Green Technologies," Sarah confirmed. "They're manufacturing some kind of energy converter. The CEO grew up around here apparently, thought it would be good to bring jobs back to his hometown." Chloe set down her cup carefully. "Ben's here? In Mapleton? You know him?" Sarah asked, surprised. "He's like a local hero now. There's a ribbon-cutting ceremony at the factory tomorrow. The whole town's invited." After Sarah left, Chloe sat motionless, her coffee growing cold. Ben had brought his company to their hometown, the place she'd been so desperate to escape. He was revitalizing. The irony was almost too much to bear. That night, Chloe barely slept. By morning, a decision had crystallized. She would attend the ceremony. Not to confront Ben or attempt reconciliation, but simply to see with her own eyes the life she might have shared if she'd recognized its value. The ceremony was held in front of the renovated factory, a once decrepit building now gleaming with solar panels and fresh paint. Nearly half the town had turned out, creating a festival atmosphere with food trucks and local musicians. Chloe stayed at the periphery, wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy day. From her vantage point, she could see the makeshift stage where town officials and company representatives gathered. When Ben appeared, a cheer went up from the crowd. He looked even more confident than at the Innovation Expo, at ease in front of the hometown audience. Beside him stood Layla, elegant in a simple suit, her hand resting comfortably in his. The mayor stepped forward to introduce Mapleton's own Ben Bennett, praising his decision to invest in the community. Ben accepted the giant ceremonial scissors with a self-deprecating smile that made Chloe's heart ache with recognition. "Thank you all for the warm welcome," Ben began. "When I was growing up here, people used to say Mapleton's best days were behind it. I never believed that. This town taught me the values that guide my company today: hard work, integrity, and community." He turned to Layla with a softness in his eyes that Chloe recognized all too well. "I also want to thank my fiancée, Dr. Layla Rodriguez, who convinced me that bringing our manufacturing facility here wasn't just good for Mapleton, but smart business." Fiancé. The word hit Chloe like a physical blow. As the crowd applauded, she noticed the diamond ring glinting on Layla's left hand. After the ribbon cutting, Ben and Layla mingled with the crowd. Their easy interaction with the townspeople showed none of the condescension Chloe had felt toward her humble origins. They seemed genuinely invested in the community, with Ben introducing Layla to his old teachers and childhood friends. Chloe was about to slip away when Ben looked up and spotted her. For a moment he seemed startled. Then, after a brief word to Layla, he made his way through the crowd toward her. She froze, unable to retreat or advance as he approached. "Chloe," he said simply, "I heard you were back in town." Up close, the changes in him were even more pronounced, not just the external polish, but a fundamental ease with himself that she'd never seen during their marriage. Congratulations, she managed to say. On everything, the company, the engagement. Ben nodded. Thank you. No bitterness, no anger, just calm acceptance. Are you happy? The question escaped before she could stop it. He considered this thoughtfully. Yes, he said finally. Not because of success or money, but because I'm building something meaningful with someone who shares my values. The words weren't meant to wound, but they cut deep nonetheless. I'm glad, she said, meaning it despite the pain. You deserve that. An awkward silence stretched between them before Layla appeared at Ben's side, her expression curious but not unkind. We should get back, she said gently. The mayor wants to introduce you to the high school robotics team. Ben nodded, then turned back to Chloe. Take care of yourself, he said, with genuine if distant goodwill. As they walked away, Layla's hand slipped naturally into his, their steps in easy synchronization. Watching them, Chloe finally understood what she had thrown away, not just a man who loved her, but the chance to grow alongside someone of substance. She turned and walked alone through the town she'd once despised, seeing it through new eyes. The glamorous life she'd coveted had proven to be a beautiful, empty shell, while the simple existence she'd rejected contained depths she'd been too shallow to recognize. The true punishment wasn't losing Vincent or his lifestyle. It was realizing, too late, that she had always had something of far greater value, and had been too blind to see it.